So you're closing the trilogy with Songs of White Lion Volume 3 out on September 19th. Was there a particular theme or emotion or musical element that you wanted to highlight to give closure?
Well, there is the looking back at when I did Volume 1, I actually had no plans of doing Volume 2 or 3. As I was starting doing the interviews, people were asking me about if I should do a Volume 2. And eventually already there, I figured, yes, now it makes sense. Now looking back at the whole thing, had I known from the beginning that I was going to do 3 volumes, I would for sure have spaced the songs more mixed up across the 3 albums, meaning that Volume 1, in lack of better words, close to like a greatest hits. It's got Wade, it's got Little Fighters, it's got all the big White Lion songs on, and so therefore it flows as a greatest hits. It doesn't flow as an album. Going in to record Volume 3, it had a completely different feeling. I felt that we were recording actually an album where the songs were matching each other better than just a combination or compilation of songs just put together, because that's what on a volume of a collective works. So without having a basic concept in mind, yes, there were a concept in mind. It was that Volume 3 represents a lot of the dark album tracks from some of these albums, the kind of songs that never really got pushed to the front, but the kind of tracks that the band always wanted to play live because they're much more fun to play than the singles.
After the first 7 years, I thought that was it. And I started growing tomatoes and making wine, and then they start knocking on the door saying, "No, we're not done with you."
We've been recording all 3 albums in Copenhagen, Denmark, at a studio that I've used for the last 15 years and a team that I've used for the last 15 years. And then we've been doing a few touch-ups at home, basically these days, sort of to save a bit of cash and things like that. There's no need for me to go into a big studio for me to do vocals. I can do that in my home studio,
I was going to ask you, because I see the... is that a Neumann mic, or what's that mic behind you?
That's a 47, yeah.
Is it really? Like one of the old school 47s?
Yeah.
Damn. What'd you pay for that?
Well, there are a few things that you have been fortunate enough to have with you from the times before people put a big price tag on things,
Oh, nice. So you've had it for decades then, huh?
Yeah.
And that's what you use to cut all your vocals nowadays?
It's what I use to cut vocals is, and I've gone through several different preamps, but always something that does not do any form of coloring.
Compared to, say, like your early records or the 80s records, do you do the vocals differently when you're recording? I know a lot of times the old school would be, you sing the song 3 or 4 times and then the producer or the engineer comps it and kind of pieces it together that way. Do you do that kind of stuff?
Yeah, exactly. You know what? On the Pride and the Big Game album, when I was working with Wagner, we never comped. If there was a line that wasn't as good, we would simply punch in and do the comping there. When we did the Main Attraction album with Richie Zito, he had me sing 4 or 5 tracks, and then he would sit with the lyrical sheet and make notes, and then he would give it to engineer Phil Capel to push it together. But there are several songs that I can hear that they're not from the same vocal line. And I always swore that I would never do that again. I hate that kind of thing. So I am back to when I do my own vocal lines, I don't comp. I simply punch in and out so I'm in the flow of the song.
I was in a band in New York, just a local copy band, and Mike was in a band from Europe, and he came over, and we just played the same show, and we just met. It was just like love at first sight. It was total
Yeah,
guitar.
really, I was really impressed the way he walked into the dress room. We had come in a little earlier, and he walked in with a snotty attitude, like he didn't care about nobody, and it kind of impressed me. He said, nah, I got to be in a band like that.
Let's just go back to 1983. I mean, Vito and I were trying to put a band together in New York. It was really hard because the kind of people that we sort of felt, coming into the 80s we were looking at were all on the West Coast. And it just seems like it was endless rain or endless winter, that the whole writing session and the whole rehearsal session, in Staten Island, New York, in this shit rehearsal studio that our drummer owned, just really kept you at edge, which is why Fight to Survive is not just a kind of album that actually puts us in the category where sort of White Lion ended up, and later on sort of removed from when you really listen to the songs. But Fight to Survive is an album that almost stands by itself away from Pride, Big Game, and Main Attraction. It's a very, very dark and heavy album, and heavily influenced by the two first Ozzy albums and several other things. And of course also Vito and I finding each other and where we were going to go with our songwriting.
So Vito, why don't you start the ball rolling? What exactly happened with the record label? We can't mention them, or we may get sued.
No, we can't mention them. Could spell it out. No, we can't mention them. Well, me and Mike, we did the whole thing. We wrote the record, we recorded it. That has nothing to do with this. But we came back to the States. We got signed really quick. We got a huge deal. I mean, a lawyer handling it said that it's one of the biggest deals ever given a new band. And we went and signed the papers, everything. The company was treating us like gold. I mean, they were saying, you're the next big thing. Everything. We'd go up there. They would bring us into big meeting rooms and have all the top executives come in and everything. And everything was set, perfect. I mean, you couldn't ask for better. Big budgets, videos, everything. And then all of a sudden, like within like one day, it was, you just call up and they don't want to, it's like, white who? We don't know anything. They totally dropped the band, never gave us a reason. I mean, it's not like they put the record out and it failed. They just never even put the record out. They just didn't want to put it out. They put it on the shelf and just left it there.
So we kind of came out through Europe first, and later on the album was imported from Europe to America. So I think that's probably the reason why we started getting like a small, solid following. It's not like we have a humongous yet, but we plan to.
Not everybody knows, but we had actually already in '86 gone back to Frankfurt, Germany, where we recorded Fight to Survive and recorded the Pride album. And we came back to America and we listened to it and we just looked at each other and said, it's not good enough. So Vito and I went back to the drawing board and rewrote the songs and changed it and stuff like that, back and forth. So by the time we walk into the studio in LA in January of '87 with Wagner, there is no experimentation and there's no bonus tracks. The 10 tracks that's been recorded for the Pride album are the 10 tracks we recorded. There's no extra tracks.
With the rewriting, is there a particular song that changed quite a bit from those first recordings?
Oh, yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely. If you listen to the original, and it is out there, Pride Take One, it is existing out there as a bootleg. Tell Me went through a very big transformation and that.
I didn't even know that stuff was out there.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of shit happens.
So did you record the first version with Michael, or was that somebody else?
Somebody else. Just went over to Frankfurt and just basing reality. We just went into a pre-production camp and just experimenting. I mean, we recorded, but we basically had ended up experimenting and testing the song in how many different places it could go. So we actually heard where it should not go and had a chance to pull that back and then do it the right way.
Were you signed to Atlantic by then? The first time?
No.
For the first, you did that on your own dime?
We weren't even signed to Atlantic when we started recording Pride.
Okay, so you're working with Michael before you signed.
Yeah, Michael was the one that brought us out to LA and said, I want to work with you guys.
Through the years, we've had different members, but we never really settled on anybody until we found the final setup, which is Greg on drums and Vito on guitar.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
There we are, right here.
Greg on drums and James on bass.
This is the handy reference for you folks at home, too.
We basically had our rehearsal room in our manager's club, Lemoore in Brooklyn, and I don't know, one day the payphone just kept ringing, and I answered it, and it was Michael Wagner. He says, hey, I said, so I know your name, and so I was like, he says, man, I really like what you guys do, man, I really would like to do, and I passed it on to a manager, and Michael put up the money for us to come out there and found the place for us to live.
We got your video coming up, Wait. Can you tell the folks a little bit about something first?
Yeah, this is a song called Wait.
Oh, it is, yeah. Well, it's definitely a video we've been waiting for quite a while. I mean, the band has been together since '83.
The album could have died. Atlantic Records were close to just letting it go of it, but even when Wade was released, I mean, Atlantic was just like doing nothing, and it wasn't until somewhere in the late fall that a radio station in Minneapolis played the song at prime time and just got flooded and let the rest of the radio station across the country know about this. And on a weekly basis, one radio station would pick the song up and it would have the same effect. So this is an album broken by the people. As I'm telling this story, I realize how this is pure and honest all the way through. There's nothing was handed to us with that album.
Right now on this new album, we're definitely getting slagged by the press here, which is, fine. Because when we had reviews that...
it's not by you.
If we had reviews that it said this album was the greatest album ever recorded, we would just look at each other and say, no, it's not. That's just that person's opinion. So if they say it's terrible, we don't care. It's just that person's opinion. But I'm really getting sick and tired of people, here. It seems like it's only in England where everybody's saying that
Calm
the
down,
album
man. Calm down. Easy. Take it easy, man.
Where the album's lighter. The album's lighter and everything. It's like...
Do you think that's because the album's kind of like a very eclectic combination of different styles?
No, it's because the album is lighter. But so what? That's what we're trying to tell people.
It's like...
We know it's a lighter album. We did it as a lighter album. You don't have to tell me this album's not as heavy as the first two. We know that. It's... I know it. We wrote the music. I should know whether it's heavy or light, and it is light. But what it is it's album number 3 of White Lion. So when you wake up in the morning... you go out and you buy a White Lion record and say, oh, this is light. It doesn't mean you threw the other two away in the garbage because this is the new one. If you want to listen to a Van Halen, and you wake up, say, I'm in the mood to listen to Van Halen, you have a choice. Do I want to listen to Dave Lee Roth Van Halen? Do I want to listen to this album? Do I want to listen to that? You wake up, say, I want to listen to whoever. Elton John. Do I want to listen to his ballads? Do I want to listen to this? The same with any other band. And right now, Big Game is... yeah, it's a lighter album. Like I said, big deal. It's just a choice. If you want to hear heavy White Line, you put on the first record. Maybe the next record's going to be heavier than Metallica. We don't know that.
Big Game comes 2 years after Pride. But the thing was, we were almost on the road for 2 years on the Pride album. The Big Game album should never have come at that time because the band needed a long break. The band needed to be able to look at it from the outside in and seeing what is it we have become. Vito and I had not even considered any form of songwriting on the whole Pride tour. Vito had gathered some riffs because he always do about he'd be playing guitar for 3 hours every day, So he had a nice little collection of guitar riffs and things like that. But when we finally went in to write the songs for Big Game, we were burned out. We didn't really know where we were as an artist or as a human being. We'd just been playing Wait and singing When the Children Cry for 18 months. We needed to get back down and we needed to give the throat a rest and the clothes a rest and the hair a rest and the industry a rest. Pride is still on top 100 when Big Game is released. We're basically shipping gold on Big Game before we started recording the album. I mean, these are all just things we know from later on. But the thing is that, like you sort of mentioned, and I was almost listening to you like you were telling a documentary about the other bands in Atlantic and stuff like that. There were nobody in our stable of record company and A&R guys and managers and advisors and you know, whoever that guided us. Instead, they pushed us and says, "Oh, you got to get a new album out on the road before, out in the shops before you're dead." And we're like, "What are you talking about? We're already being offered the Ozzy Osbourne tour before we go in and record the album. So we're going in. We're going in as small millionaires. When we went in to record the Pride album, we got $100 each week. When we went in to record the Big M albums, we were basically close to millionaires. So obviously we go in with a completely different sort of attitude and definitely a lot of confusion of what are we. I mean, it's almost like the emperor's new clothes. We're under the assumption that we're greater than we are.
Big Game, the second album from White Lion, hits the streets this week. The first single, Little Fighter, was written by guitarist Vito Bratta and singer Mike Tramp. Now, Mike has pledged his share of the proceeds from Little Fighter to Greenpeace, the international environmental organization. The single is sure to be a collector's item since it has a poster of the band and another pullout of that pin-up favorite, Mike. As you can see, Mr. Tramp has a brand spanking new Harley, which can also be heard revving up on White Lion's cover of the Golden Earring classic Radar Love. Other songs are Cry for Freedom, Living on the Edge, Going Home Tonight, and the power ballad Baby Be Mine. The band just finished the Memorial Day weekend World Series of Rock in Wisconsin on June 15th in Columbia, Maryland, to kick off a tour opening up for Ozzy Osbourne.
We wrote that album in 10 days. And you still end up with Little Fighter and Cry for Freedom and a couple of really kick-ass tracks on that album, Living on the Edge. But still, imagine it, and you know, compared to when we went in and recorded, I know you talked about Fight to Survive, but when we went in and recorded Pride album, we had played that album for a year and a half in the clubs. It's a classic story you hear from Van Halen when they record the first album. They were just playing the live show. When we go in and record the Pride album, we know those songs backwards. We're so confident in those songs. When we went in and recorded Big Game, we hadn't even been in a rehearsal studio together. They were played for the first time as we were nailing the songs.
Man.
It's up looking back at it. It pisses me off, which is about maybe 50% of my motivation to do the 3 volumes, especially at the Big Game album, getting a second shot and nailing some of the songs a little bit tighter.
I'm not trying to stop Vito from using hairspray because it's destroying the ozone layer. We have to start somewhere, and we cannot start with the hairspray that Vito uses. We have to start with the bigger things.
What about the underarm deodorant you use?
It's non-aerosol.